Welcome to the video. We're checking out the book known as What Every Pianist Needs to Know About the Body. I've provided the link in the description for you to check out the book. And before I get into the video, I just want to say that whatever being talked about in this video is only the important points. I'm not really, reading out the whole thing. So if you want to know much more about the book, like if you want to dive deeper into it, then it's highly recommended that you go check out the book because it's just wonderful. Now let's get into the video. The hip joint is the middle part of our body, but if people think that the waist is the middle part of our body, then that's wrong and you should revise your body map. When we stand in balance, the hip joint is aligned vertically with the aortic joint, the shoulder joint and the lumbar spine. And also, hip joint is way lower than you think. For most people, when they're standing in balance, the muscles in their butt is tense, but we should relax those muscles. They should not be tense when we're standing. Things like tucking your butt is one of the posture myths, and it's a very bad advice. If you have the habit of tucking in your butt, then you're also going to have the habit of slightly rotating your leg outwards, so that your toes point out to the sides, and this is going to cause the heel of your shoes to wear faster than the insides. Release of your butt muscles is going to permit a slightly inward rotation of your leg, and that is the neutral position. Just like how we relax those butt muscles when we are standing, we should also relax our butt muscles when we are sitting as well. Because if we won't do that, then the weight will be delivered to the back of the legs instead of the sit bones, and it would be difficult to move the legs. When we release our butt muscles while we're sitting, it's also going to permit an inward rotation of the legs, permitting the butt muscles to be relaxed. The release of the butt muscles will feel like a downward drop of the butt, not to be confused with the tucking of the butt. And these muscles fan out from the sacrum. They are shortened and narrowed by tension, so as you free them, they lengthen and widen, and your lower back regains a nice sense of roundness. If the hip joints do not bend far enough, then the pelvis will tilt backwards, throwing the weight towards the tailbone and forcing the arms and torso muscles to compensate for it. This is back-oriented sitting. Bending of the hip joints may also cause the weight to be delivered to the back of the thighs instead of the sit bones. People who have mismapped this may imagine that the support for the upper body comes from the surface of the back instead from the core. The pelvis moves freely at the hip joints, with the movement that includes the whole spine. Most pianists just plant their pelvis on the bench and just move from the waist. They need to be aware that the pelvis is the lowest part of the upper body, not the upper part of the lower body. Therefore, when we sit on the piano bench, the entire upper body is on the bench, and we have to map the pelvis as part of the upper body. We should not think of it as the base or the foundation above which the upper body moves. When we are sitting on our sit bones, the thigh bones are usually a bit above our sit bones, and this is actually going to permit our legs to be free. If a person sits so that the weight is going to be delivered to the back of the thigh instead of the sit bones, then the legs are not going to be free, and the movements won't be as easy as before. So therefore, playing would be more difficult. There are two sort of motions possible at the hip joints that makes proper sitting possible. The first and most obvious one is the bending motion that puts the thigh bone at the right angle to the torso. The second one is the release of any muscular tension that causes the outward rotation of the leg. Now we're going to talk a bit about the bench height. A person sitting too low may hunch their shoulders, or lift the elbows, or clench their fingers as if to grab the piano, to compensate for the feeling of the hands falling off the keyboard. A person sitting too high may drop their wrist or pull the collarbone and the shoulder blade down. All these limits our freedom. So a real handy way to find out the optimum height is to compare the tip of the elbow with the top of the white keys. The tip of the elbow should be at the same plane as the top of the white keys. And once you become accustomed to playing at the optimum height, your kinesthetic sense will tell you the moment you sit down whether the height is right for you or not.